You like home? Good. Because we got one now.
Relive the memories.
As long as you do your best, Laura, we'll always be proud of you.
In 1982, one episode of Little House on the Prairie shocked viewers. It pushed boundaries no family show had tried before. The network aired it once, then it vanished. No reruns, no explanation. When fans asked what happened, they got silence. Even the cast wouldn't talk about it. The episode tackled topics so dark that parents complained for weeks. Letters flooded NBC's offices. But what made this episode so dangerous? Let's go a little bit into history first. In the early 1970s, after Bonanza ended its 14-year run, Michael Landon was at a crossroads. NBC offered him a development deal. He could pick his next project. At first, he wasn't looking to star in anything, just direct. But when producer Ed Friendly asked him to direct a pilot for Little House on the Prairie, based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's books, something changed. Landon's wife and daughter were huge fans of the books. That personal connection hit him hard. He decided not only to direct, but to take the lead role of Charles Ingalls. That decision shaped the next decade of American television. But from the very beginning, there was tension. Landon and Friendly couldn't agree on the show's tone. Friendly wanted gritty realism, dirt, hardship, ragged shoes, bearded pioneers. Landon wanted emotion, heart, and big storytelling moments. The clash grew intense. By 1974, Landon gave NBC a choice. Either Friendly leaves or he walks. NBC backed Landon. That decision gave him full creative control and pushed Friendly out, though Friendly still earned millions from the show. Landon later said Friendly tried to sabotage it, but failed. Friendly had been the one to first secure the rights. His daughter reread Wilder's books every year, and he believed they could work on TV. He bought the rights from Roger Lee McBride, then brought in screenwriter Blanche Canales. She wrote longhand drafts early in the morning, sometimes starting at 4 a.m. Friendly would revise them with her. It was personal for both of them, but Landon's approach slowly took over. Canales wrote the pilot episode. It aired on March 30th, 1974, as a 2-hour special. The ratings were excellent. Just a few months later, the regular series premiered on September 11th. Canales never wrote another episode. She and Landon had different visions, but she still got credit on every episode. She had laid the foundation. By the end of the first season, the power struggle between authenticity and entertainment had changed the show. Friendly even told the Los Angeles Times that NBC forced them to stray far from the original books. Melissa Sue Anderson, who played Mary Ingalls, disagreed. She believed Landon's changes were necessary. She said he kept the heart and values of the books, while giving the show room to grow. Under Landon's leadership, Little House on the Prairie didn't just tell pioneer stories. It tackled alcoholism, racism, blindness, poverty, addiction, and more. He wanted it to speak to 1970s families through a historical lens, and it worked. The show ran for 9 seasons, spawned 3 movies, and stayed in syndication for decades. Casting Caroline Ingalls wasn't easy. Landon auditioned 47 actresses before he found Karen Grassel. She was mostly a theater actor with no TV or film credits, but Landon believed she looked like a real pioneer woman. That mattered more to him than big names. His instinct paid off. Grassel brought depth and warmth to the role. She played Caroline from 1974 to 1983, and her performance became iconic. Casting Laura was another stroke of luck. Melissa Gilbert was only 9, but she'd already been acting since she was 3. Landon gave her the nickname Half Pint, a name that stuck forever. She played Laura from age 9 to 19. It became her life. Even in 2025, she's still connected to the role. She recently passed the torch to a new Laura, Alice Halsey, for Netflix's upcoming reboot. Gilbert called Laura a warrior and said her story still matters. Landon's casting choices often went against industry norms. He picked theater actors over television stars. Richard Bull and Catherine McGregor, who played Nels and Harriet Olsen, both had strong stage backgrounds. McGregor even annoyed some of her co-stars by offering constant acting tips. But their performances were memorable. The balance between Harriet's loud opinions and Nels's quiet endurance added a unique dynamic to the show. And then there was Carrie Ingalls. That sweet little girl tumbling down the hill in the opening credits was actually played by twins, Lindsay and Sydney Greenbush. California law restricted how many hours a young child could work. By casting twins, production could film longer. Viewers never knew the difference. They looked and acted so alike, no one suspected there were two Carries. The twins acted from 1974 to 1982, then retired from TV. But fans still line up at reunions to meet the two girls who shared one unforgettable role. When Little House on the Prairie first aired on September 11, 1974, no one expected it to become one of NBC's biggest hits. But from day one, the numbers told a different story. The show started strong, ranking number 13 in its first season with 16.1 million viewers and a 23.5 rating. It didn't just hold on, it climbed. By season 4, it was the 7th most-watched show in America, pulling in 17.6 million viewers. In season 7, it did even better with 17.7 million. For 6 straight years, from 1974 to 1981, the show never dropped below number 16 in the ratings. That kind of consistency was rare. Even when viewership started to slip in the later years, it stayed relevant. Season 8 ranked number 25, and the final season, rebranded as Little House, A New Beginning, still pulled in 14.5 million viewers at number 29. Over 9 seasons, it became the backbone of NBC's family programming. But its impact didn't stop in America. The show went global. Little House aired in more than 100 countries and never left TV after its original run. Not once. That kind of syndication is unheard of. People from Europe to Asia connected with the simple frontier stories. The idea of family, struggle, and survival spoke across borders. New generations kept discovering it. In 2024 alone, viewers spent 13.25 billion minutes watching it. That's over 25,000 years of watch time in a single year. That's not just nostalgia, that's power. Even with its dated look, the show is still finding fans, especially younger ones, drawn to its honesty. While audiences loved the emotional stories, critics started paying attention too. The show racked up 44 nominations and 17 wins across major awards. The Emmys often praised its cinematography and music. In 1982, composer David Rose won for his work on He Was Only 12, Part 2, a heartbreaking episode. The show even got Golden Globe nominations, including Best Drama Series in 1977 and a Best Actor nod for Landon in 1979. One of the younger stars was nominated for Best Actress in 1981. It wasn't just a feel-good family show, it had real artistic respect. In 1997, TV Guide named I'll Be Waving As You Drive Away, the 2-part episode about Mary's blindness, as one of the 100 greatest TV episodes of all time. That kind of legacy doesn't fade. But not everything was so perfect. When Little House on the Prairie first aired in 1974, It looked like a warm, family-friendly show about a simple pioneer life. But beneath the surface, the show was anything but lighthearted. It tackled topics so dark and intense that many episodes left audiences stunned and often disturbed. While it was based on Laura Ingalls Wilder's childhood in the 1800s, the show wasn't afraid to explore pain, death, addiction, and even murder. In Season 8, an episode called Soldier's Return introduced a Civil War veteran named Granville Whipple. He came back broken, haunted by the war and addicted to morphine. He wasn't just a sad character. He was a mirror for 1970s viewers still dealing with the trauma of Vietnam, a war that had just ended in 1975 after taking 58,220 American lives. Watching him struggle with flashbacks and substance abuse wasn't just emotional, it was heavy. It showed pain that people didn't expect to see in a prairie town with kids and bonnets. But the show's darkness started much earlier. Season 1 shocked everyone with an episode called Plague. It aired on January 29, 1975, and showed a typhus outbreak sweeping through Walnut Grove. Sick people coughed, vomited, and died right on screen. The town panicked. People were quarantined in the church. In one of the most heartbreaking scenes, a man held his dead son under a tree, begging for him to wake up. It wasn't just emotional, it felt real. Charles, Doc Baker, and Reverend Alden worked day and night trying to save people, and many still didn't make it. The cause? Rats had spread fleas through infected cornmeal. That level of gruesome detail made the episode unforgettable. And behind the scenes, Michael Landon's own daughter, Leslie, played a sick girl in that episode. He struggled to get through filming because the emotions hit too close to home. Then came one of the most twisted storylines the show ever aired: the reincarnation of Nellie. When Nellie Olson left the town, her mother, Harriet, didn't just miss her. She became obsessed with replacing her. Harriet adopted a little girl named Nancy, who looked just like Nellie. Then she tried to erase Nancy's personality and turn her into a perfect copy. It was chilling. And it got worse. Nancy wasn't just manipulative, she was dangerous. In one scene, she locked another girl named Belinda in an ice house to freeze to death just to get a school play role. And when Nels found Belinda barely alive, Nancy blamed her own brother without blinking. Turns out, Nancy had been abandoned by her grandmother because of her disturbing behavior. But instead of getting therapy or help, the town punished her by putting her in a dunk tank at a festival. That scene made a lot of viewers uncomfortable. A deeply troubled child wasn't helped. She was mocked. And that wasn't the only time the show left viewers emotionally wrecked. In Season 4, Mary Ingalls lost her sight. The scene where she screamed for her father after going blind wasn't just sad. It was gut-wrenching. Actress Melissa Sue Anderson gave a performance so raw, people still remember it decades later. In Season 9, Laura's newborn son died in his sleep in the episode A Child with No Name. She broke down, blamed the doctor, and accused him of murder. Historians later said the real-life Ingalls family may have had a genetic issue that caused male infants to die. That made the episode even more painful. Violence was also a recurring theme. In The Aftermath from Season 4, Frank and Jesse James came to Walnut Grove. They took Mary hostage. For a show known for moral lessons and gentle family moments, this episode was terrifying. These were real-life killers, and they were holding one of the main characters at gunpoint. Even moments that were supposed to be heartwarming often carried an edge of danger, especially when Miss Beadle was involved. She was the sweet schoolteacher played by Charlotte Stewart. But over time, her character became known for something strange, putting children in danger by accident. Michael Landon used to joke, "Miss Beadle kills the kids again." It was dark humor, but it wasn't far from the truth. In the blizzard episode from Season 3, she dismissed school early during a snowstorm. Several children got lost in the freezing cold. Viewers were on edge the whole time, not knowing if they would make it. And in another episode, a classroom science experiment went wrong and nearly injured several students. Stewart later admitted that although Miss Beadle was supposed to be kind and smart, these constant accidents made her character unintentionally frightening. It was February 6, 1984, and millions of viewers tuned in to see how Little House on the Prairie would say goodbye. What they got was something no one expected. Walnut Grove, the quiet town everyone had grown up with, was blown to pieces, literally. In the final movie, The Last Farewell, one building after another was packed with dynamite and turned into rubble. And these weren't props or special effects. The crew actually destroyed the real sets that had stood for 9 seasons. The schoolhouse, the boarding house, even the general store. Everything went up in smoke. The story blamed a greedy land baron named Nathan Lassiter. He showed up with papers saying he owned the entire town. The people of Walnut Grove, who had believed they were settlers with rights to the land, were told to pack up and leave, but they didn't. Instead, they decided to blow up everything they had built. The first explosion came from Laura and Almanzo's boarding house. Then came Mr. Edwards. He cried as he pushed the plunger, sending his own home into the sky. The only buildings they didn't destroy were the church and the original Ingalls house. The church was sacred. The house was carefully taken apart to save it. But the real reason behind the destruction had nothing to do with the story. It was revenge. Michael Landon, who had been the heart of the show from the beginning, had something to say to NBC. And he said it with dynamite. NBC had canceled Little House without telling him. No call, no meeting. It just wasn't on the fall schedule anymore. After years of working with the same network, from Bonanza to Little House, he was furious. So he wrote the script for The Last Farewell himself and made sure nobody could use the sets again. Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura, later said it clearly. This was Landon's big "fuck you" to the network. And it worked. The finale shocked viewers. Nobody forgot it. Even in 2024, Little House became the most streamed classic show. In 2025, Netflix announced a reboot, but nothing could top the original's final moments. Behind the explosions was something deeper. The cast and crew didn't just work on those sets. They lived there. Birthdays, weddings, losses, all of it happened while filming that show. To them, it wasn't just a set. It was a real place, a part of their lives. Landon, according to Gilbert, also worried someone might use the town for something sleazy, like filming adult movies. He couldn't stand the thought. "We built those," she said. "They were ours." One thing survived, the little Ingalls house. Stan Ivar, who played John Carter, took it apart himself and stored it. He's kept it ever since. He even tried to donate it to museums, including the Smithsonian. But no one wanted it. So it's still sitting in storage, untouched since 1984. Strangely, none of the actors were there when the explosions happened. For safety reasons, those scenes were filmed separately. Later, the cast returned to shoot their final scenes surrounded by smoking ruins. It hit them hard. Melissa Gilbert said it was like a funeral, a long one. Every day someone else filmed their last scene. Every day there were new goodbyes. And when they walked into what used to be their town, there was nothing left. Crying you see in that final episode, it wasn't acting. It was real. Gilbert said they'd be fine for a few minutes. Then someone would start crying, and everyone else would follow. Even the crew behind the cameras was crying. It was the end of something huge. Not just a show, but a part of their lives. Mr. Edwards sobbed while blowing up his house. Reverend Alden prayed over the ruins, calling the town their friend. And when they all sang "Onward, Christian Soldiers" while walking away from the ashes, it wasn't just a scene, it was a real goodbye. They were saying farewell to their home, their family, and a piece of TV history that would never be built again. The Little House book series was once a beloved staple of American childhood, but over time, people started looking closer, and what they found shocked them. Behind the warm stories of pioneer life were disturbing portrayals of Native Americans and Black Americans. Some of the language used in the books was deeply offensive. One line even read, "There were no people, only Indians lived there." In another, Pa says, "The only good Indian is a dead Indian." These weren't just small details, they were at the center of the family's story. In Little Town on the Prairie, Pa even performs in a minstrel show, singing a racist song in blackface. And the book included an illustration of that exact scene. So when producers decided to turn these books into a television show, they faced a serious problem. How do you bring these stories to TV without bringing along all the racism too? The answer wasn't simple. Huge parts of the story had to be changed or left out. Some things simply couldn't be shown on screen, not without sparking outrage. Author Linda Sue Park, who read the books as a child, later admitted how much pain they caused her. She said, "I was hurt by those books, and that took me 50 years to reconcile." In 2018, even the American Library Association stepped in. They renamed the Laura Ingalls Wilder Lifetime Achievement Award. It became the Children's Literature Legacy Award. The change wasn't random. It was because of the growing backlash against Wilder's views. But the problem ran deeper than a few offensive lines. As author Roxane Gay pointed out, it didn't even occur to anyone to think anything of the depictions of Indians in those books. That one sentence said it all. At the time the books were written, many people didn't even see the racism. That's how normalized it was. And that made the job of the television writers even harder. They had to take stories built on outdated ideas and somehow turn them into something more inclusive. The show changed Pa's character completely. Instead of being someone who once said racist things, the TV version of Pa became a symbol of peace. One review said the show took old religious ideas about community, stripped out the religion, and rebuilt them as family drama. It was a clever way to keep the setting and spirit of the books while leaving behind their most harmful parts. But outside of TV, the books themselves were still causing problems. Some publishers began editing out racist passages in newer editions. Not everyone agreed with that decision. Wilder's biographer, Pamela Smith Hill, warned that removing those parts could do more harm than good. "It's very disturbing, but it is part of our history," she said. "If we don't talk about these issues honestly with our children, we are jeopardizing their future." Roxane Gay agreed. She said we shouldn't rewrite the books. Instead, we should teach them with proper context. That way, readers would understand the history and the harm. After World War II, Japan was broken, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The country had been bombed, defeated, and isolated from Western culture for years. English books were banned. More than 1,000 titles were censored. But in 1949, something unexpected happened. The Americans allowed one book to be translated and published, The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder. It wasn't a war book, a political lecture, or a guide to democracy. It was a story about a family trapped in snow, barely surviving on scraps of food. And yet, that's exactly why it was chosen. General Douglas MacArthur and his team believed this quiet story could lift Japan's morale. They thought it could show people, especially children, how to survive hardship with dignity. They renamed the book Nagai Fuyu, and it became the first English work officially published in post-war Japan. The translation was done by Aya Ishida. On July 8, 1948, Wilder sent a personal message to Japanese readers. She wrote, "It is always best to be honest and truthful, to be cheerful in adversity, and have courage in danger." That message wasn't just poetic. It was exactly what millions needed to hear. The book was sent to libraries and schools across Japan. It became part of a larger plan to help the country rebuild, not just buildings, but values. According to the American occupation government, it was time to infuse into the hearts and minds of the Japanese people principles of liberty and right heretofore unknown to them. That might sound dramatic, but it worked. The story of a simple frontier family turned into something much bigger, a cultural bridge between enemies. Just a few years later, back in the United States, Wilder was honored in a way no one had expected. In 1954, at age 87, she received the very first Laura Ingalls Wilder Award. It was created just for her by the American Library Association. She had only started writing seriously at age 65. Her first book, Little House in the Big Woods, came out in 1932. But 2 decades later, her work was being celebrated as one of the most important contributions to children's literature. That bronze medal, later renamed due to controversy, was given to authors whose books shaped generations. And Wilder's books had done exactly that. What made her writing powerful wasn't fancy language or big historical figures. She wrote about normal people, families trying to survive, parents teaching children, communities holding together through bitter winters and bad harvests. Her work didn't just entertain. It taught kids what life was like long ago and what values had kept people going. As the years passed, Wilder's stories went beyond books. They became buildings. Schools and libraries around the world were named after her. The TV show Little House on the Prairie, which started in the 1970s, took her stories global. In Japan, where the long winter had once been a healing tool, the love for her work only grew stronger. In 1975, they created their own anime version of her life, called Sogen no Shoujo Laura, Laura the Prairie Girl. That same year, the American TV series began airing in Japan and ran for 7 straight years. Audiences connected to the characters, especially the fierce and unforgettable Nellie Olson. The TV series wasn't just a nostalgia trip. While most family shows avoided tough topics, Little House faced them head-on. It tackled racism, sexual assault, addiction, and grief. And it did it all through the lens of a 19th-century farming town. Even in places like France, where American frontier life was a distant concept, people loved the show. Nellie, in particular, became a surprising fan favorite. Then something strange happened. In 2020, during the global pandemic, people started watching Little House again. Episodes like Plague and Quarantine felt eerily familiar. Families stuck at home saw their own lives in the Ingalls family struggles. It reminded them that hard times aren't new, and that strength, kindness, and unity have always been the answer. By 2024, the show's impact was impossible to ignore. Its 50th anniversary was celebrated at Big Sky Movie Ranch in California, where the original show had been filmed. Thousands of fans showed up. The set was rebuilt. The church, the schoolhouse, Olson's store, they were all recreated. Dean Butler, who played Almanzo Wilder, said it best: "Little House has been an enormously important part of all of our lives." The cast included legends like Ernest Borgnine, Johnny Cash, Patricia Neal, and Ray Bolger. Future stars like Sean Penn had early roles on the show. And still, 50 years later, the show is airing. It's been in constant syndication since its debut. That kind of staying power is rare. But Little House isn't just a show. It's a time machine, a history lesson, a mirror. It showed the world what life on the American frontier was really like. But more than that, it showed what courage, family, and resilience look like, no matter where you're from. From war-torn Japan in 1949 to pandemic-era Europe in 2020, the story never lost its power. What started as one woman writing late in life became a global legacy, and it all began with a long, cold winter.